All right, so let's dive right into the fascinating world of coffee cultivation and harvesting. The journey of coffee as we know it begins with a humble coffee plant. Now, these aren't your average shrubs. The coffee plant is an evergreen shrub that grows mainly in the equatorial region, with countries like Brazil, Vietnam, and Colombia leading the production. And the plant matures in about 3 to 4 years and starts producing fruits known as coffee cherries. Now, here's something interesting. Despite being called cherries, these fruits are nothing like the cherries we are familiar with. They're small round fruits that start out green and ripen to a deep, gorgeous red. And inside each cherry are the seeds, or what we know as coffee beans. Now, harvesting these coffee cherries is a task that requires a fair amount of skill and precision. It's usually done in one of two ways: strip picking or selective picking. Strip picking is exactly what it sounds like. All the cherries are stripped off the branch at once, regardless of their ripeness. On the other hand, selective picking, well, that's a bit more labor intensive. It involves picking only the right cherries and leaving the unripe ones for later. This method ensures the quality of the beans, but is, of course, more time consuming. Harvesting season varies from region to region, but it generally takes place once a year, and it's a community event with everyone pitching in. It's hard work, but also a time of camaraderie and shared effort. Now, don't you find it fascinating that the humble cup of coffee you sip every morning has such a complex and labor-intensive beginning? Right. Let's carry on with our coffee journey and delve into the various methods used to process coffee beans. Now, if you're thinking, wait, there's more than one way to process coffee beans. Well, you'd be absolutely right. Once we've harvested our coffee cherries, the next step is to extract the seeds, or coffee beans, from the cherries. This process is known as coffee processing, and it's crucial because it directly influences the final taste of the coffee. So, there are three main methods of processing: wet process, dry process, and semi-dry process. Let's start with the wet process, also known as the washed process. Here, the coffee cherries are immediately put into a machine that separates the pulp from the beans. The beans are then fermented in water for a couple of days. This dissolves any remaining pulp and leaves us with clean coffee beans. The result? A distinctly bright, clean, and crisp flavor in your cup. On the other end of the spectrum is the dry process, also known as the natural method. The coffee cherries are left to dry in the sun for weeks. The beans are then separated from the dried husks. This method tends to result in coffee that has a robust, full-bodied, and fruitier flavor profile. The semi-dry process, or the honey process, is a bit of a hybrid between the two. It involves leaving some pulp on the beans while they dry. This method results in a coffee that's sweet and complex, with a body that's heavier than washed coffees, but lighter than natural ones. So, you see, the processing method is kind of like the coffee's backstage crew. You might not see them, but boy, do they play a starring role in the taste of your coffee. Next time you sip your coffee, take a moment to ponder the journey it's been on, from cherry to cup. Now, we're moving to one of the most critical stages of our coffees during roasting. You know, that heavenly smell that wafts through the air when you walk past a coffee shop. That's the aroma of roasting coffee beans. Roasting is where the magic happens, where the coffee beans develop their unique flavors and characteristics, The beans are heated to very high temperatures, causing chemical reactions that bring out the oils and flavors hidden within. Roasting levels range from light, medium, to dark, and each level imparts a different flavor profile to the beans. Light roasts are, well, lightly roasted, just until the first crack is heard. This is when the beans have expanded enough to make a cracking sound. Light roasts are generally more acidic, have no oil on the surface, and retain most of the original coffee characteristics. They often have a more fruity, floral flavor profile. Medium roasts are roasted a little longer, past the first crack, but not up to the second. They have a more balanced flavor, aroma, and acidity with a slightly darker color. Dark roasts are roasted until the second crack, or even beyond. They're dark brown, almost black, and quite oily on the surface. Dark roasts have a bold, robust flavor, often with notes of chocolate or caramel, but they also have less acidity and less of the original beans flavor. The roasting process is both an art and a science, involving precise temperature control and timing. It's also kind of a performance, with the roaster listening for those cracks, observing the color change, and smelling the aroma. So the next time you're savoring a cup of coffee, take a moment to appreciate the roast. It plays a huge role in shaping the symphony of flavors that dance on your palate. So we've followed our coffee from plant to cherry, from cherry to bean, and from bean to roast. But we're not done yet. There are still 2 critical steps to go before we can enjoy that perfect cup of coffee grinding and brewing. Let's start with grinding. After roasting, the coffee beans are ground to a consistency. It depends on the brewing method. The grind size, essentially how coarse or fine the coffee is ground, can dramatically affect the taste of your final cup. For instance, a coarse grind, which looks a bit like sea salt, is perfect for methods like French press, where the coffee steeps in water for a while. Medium grind, similar to granulated sugar, works well for drip coffee makers. And then there's the fine grind, as fine as table salt, which is used in espresso machines. Now, on to brewing. This is where we finally get to transform our carefully selected, processed, roasted, and ground coffee into a delicious cup of joe. There are so many ways to brew coffee, from the simple French press to the high-tech espresso machine, from the traditional Turkish ibrik to the modern AeroPress. Each method brings out different qualities in the coffee. French press, for example, gives you a robust, full-bodied cup of coffee, while pour-over methods tend to highlight the coffee's delicate flavors and aroma. Espresso, on the other hand, gives you a concentrated shot of coffee with a rich crema on top. And let's not forget about cold brew, where coffee is steeped in cold water for several hours. It results in a smooth, less acidic brew that's perfect for those hot summer days. So, the next time you're sipping your coffee, remember, it's not just a beverage. It's a work of art, a scientific marvel, a testament to the journey from bean to cup. Cheers to that. Now, let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the cultural and economic implications of coffee production. Because, let's face it, coffee isn't just a delicious beverage. It's a global phenomenon, a cultural touchstone, and a significant player in the world economy. Coffee is the second most traded commodity in the world, just after oil. Think about that for a moment. This humble being is at the heart of a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's grown primarily in developing countries, but consumed mainly in the developed world, making it a crucial source of income for millions of people. However, it's not all smooth sailing. Coffee production can also be fraught with challenges. Factors such as fluctuating market prices, climate change, and exploitative practices can make life difficult for coffee farmers. That's where fair trade practices come in. Fair trade organizations strive to ensure that farmers are paid a fair price for their coffee. They also promote sustainable farming practices and provide resources and support to coffee growing communities. So when you see a coffee labeled as fair trade, you know that it's a product that supports the welfare of the people who grew it. In terms of culture, coffee has become more than just a drink. It's a ritual, a comfort, a conversation starter, and even a work of art, as we see in latte art. It shapes our social landscapes too, from coffee houses in the Middle East in the 15th century to the bustling coffee shops in cities worldwide today. So, as we draw to the end of our coffee journey, remember that every cup of coffee you enjoy has a story to tell. A story of nature, of hard work, of global markets, and of the daily lives of people across the world.
Here's to the humble coffee bean and the extraordinary journey it takes from the tree to our cup.